Let's bring in Jeff Pierce joining us. Let's look forward, maybe. Let's say that we just bury this bad inflation expectations number under the rug for a moment, Jeff. Assume today's going to be all right. Nvidia's up 4%. It firmed yesterday, too. Is that in anticipation of this event next week? Could this be kind of the thing to get us back on track?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if you look at the outside factors that have been putting a lot of pressure on Nvidia, of course, the AI competition, the DeepSeek news, the tariffs, all causing investors to really sell off this, beloved chip maker, which is put it down to that 105 support level. And of course, we've bounced off. The stock has gained back some ground later this week, or later in the week, but it still has a lot to go. The deceleration we've seen in the data centers, especially in the last earnings report, 20% year-over-year growth compared to the triple-digit growth rates we saw in the prior quarters. They've got a lot of competition in the U.S. and outside. That's raising some questions about their valuations. The good news is they've got their products. The Blackwell system contributed about $11 billion in revenue in Q4. They expect that to continue to rise. So as we go into this conference, which is set to kick off next week, CEO is expected to speak on Tuesday around 1 Eastern. Investors, of course, going to be focused on the latest revolutions of all things AI, including software, services, processors. We're expecting to hear, more information on some of these releases, including the B300s, which some expect them to have a big performance jump compared to the B200s, perhaps larger than what we saw from the H100 to H200. There's also a question of arrival time. Expectations are in the second half of the year for that. Some are looking for Q3 as opposed to Q4. We might get some information around that. Then, of course, we're going to hear about Rubin, their next-gen GPU series as well. A lot of these things could put some momentum behind this recent kind of bounce we saw midweek, and at least that's what NVIDIA is hoping.
Okay. NVIDIA is kind of leading to some extent. I don't want to say we're in the middle of a bounce. It's pretty tenuous still, but it definitely is one of the kind of the early movers here to get us market kind of back in shape. I do wonder, though, if that will push up expectations for some kind of big product unveil. It seems like we're mostly talking updates still and more kind of continuation of what's obviously a very powerful story. But is there anything here that's like, extremely novel compared to what we already know about what they're doing?
It's going to really be about the updates, certainly, but the technology jumps. I mean, we talked about the Rubin.
Okay, so I guess how fast it's moving,
exactly.
We can still be surprised by that.
What we're going to see in terms of memory, in terms of power, if we look back at Computex in 2024, the company revealed that Rubin features 8 stacks of HBM4 memory. We could even hear about the Rubin Ultra chip, which would be the kind of the next iteration of that. We're likely going to hear about Vera CPU, NVLink switches, Connect X9 cards, so on and so forth. I think NVIDIA has some proving to do right now, especially with this DeepSeek overhang still present. They, claiming just about 5.5 million to train those V3 models compared to the hundreds of millions we've seen with OpenAI and other companies. That open source model also put some pressure on. If you ask NVIDIA, they say it's net positive for NVIDIA. DeepSeek is because it'll accelerate the adoption of AI tech more broadly. That remains to be seen. In the meantime, they want to overcome these headwinds, further restrictions on AI. They want to make sure that China is still an important revenue source for them. It was about 13% of their total revenue last year. And then, of course, tariffs, disrupting supply chains, imports, costing more are all going to be headwinds. So this technology is the only way they continue to charge more, to continue to have those huge margins that investors have expected from them.
Okay.
In the last 30 minutes of Friday's trading, shares of the massive artificial intelligence AI company Nvidia increased by about 4.5%. Although there was no clear reason for the change, the stock market recovered today following yet another challenging week, and Nvidia appears to be profiting as well following a favorable update from one of its suppliers. Han Hai Precision Industry, a subsidiary of Taiwan-based Foxconn, announced fourth-quarter net income of $1.41 billion, which fell 13% year-over-year and fell short of analyst projections. However, according to Reuters, management stated during an earnings call that it anticipates the demand from its AI server business to more than double in the first quarter of 2024. During the call, Chairman Young Liu stated, The demand for cloud service providers, or CSPs, has not decreased. The demand for CSP is expected to peak this year and then decline the next year, according to market speculations. However, that is not the case, at least not for Foxconn. Liu went on to say that Foxconn is raising manufacturing for Nvidia and that AI server income should account for more than half of the company's overall server revenue by 2025. To meet the high demand for Nvidia's Blackwell graphics processing units, Foxconn said late last year that it will construct a sizable production in Mexico. Demand may be impacted by certain tariff variables. However, we have made plans in several areas in recent years, and we have improved the robustness of our supply chain compared to the first term of President Trump 8 years ago, Liu stated. The trade war is still ongoing, even though Friday was a calmer day on the tariff front, at least as of this writing. Nvidia will probably still have to cope with the uncertainty of export restrictions and possible economic slowdown. Even though I don't currently own any Nvidia stock, the company's current valuation, just under 27 times projected earnings, is far more appealing than it was in the past, when it might have reached as high as 50 times ahead earnings, particularly if demand for AI continues to grow. So what implications does this have for Nvidia's stock? Let's explore that. But first, a big thank you to those of you who've stuck with us this far. Creating these videos takes significant effort and dedication, so if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts on Nvidia stock in the comments. Your support truly helps us grow. Now, let's get back to the video.
Dan Deming, Managing Partner at KKM Financial. Do you share such optimism, Mr. Deming? And happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday, Oliver. We'll see if it's going to be happy by the end of the day. You know, that number at 9 o'clock kind of sucked the wind out of the market a little bit, but we'll see if it can hold. And as you guys pointed out, I think it is something that is to some degree rear-looking, and hopefully as we do see some of these recent data points indicating that things are calming down a little bit, that hopefully that's enough to kind of quell some of the concerns. But nonetheless, Oliver, yes, when you look at Nvidia, I mean, honestly, it got pulled down with everything else, but yesterday it actually held in there reasonably well relative to the selling pressure in the market. And today you're seeing a nice move continuing to kind of try to dig itself out. I think that, I think the market's going to hit a low here in the next week or two. Honestly, Oliver, I think, we're going to get some more clarity and some of the data is going to come in. It's going to indicate that things are cooling down a little bit, and hopefully that it just doesn't get to a point where it's going to be, a significant downward cycle as far as expectations. But I think that we're near, at least a short-term bottom. And I think when you look at Nvidia, the way it's kind of led this move higher, that it's going to continue. So today's trade example is to capture further upside over the next 2 months. This is extended position that is being highlighted today in this example. And again, defining risk to the downside, I think that's key right now. I think anything that you look at, unless you really want to own something down here, defining your risk to the downside with the ability to capture a pretty big upside range in this trade example today.
Okay. So take me through it. I love the sound of big upside range. And you're selling the 145s, not the 140s, which was the level on my chart. So maybe that is live after all.
Well, the reason I'm doing that, Oliver, and I did look at so initially I kind of, for the trade example today, I looked at the 120-140 call spread, but, that cost about $6 to $6.5. Well, actually it's $6.5 for the May. I was looking at April as well. But, then I started thinking, well, if Nvidia gets anywhere close to its all-time highs, at that point, maybe you'd have to think about, is this something you want to get short going into the second half of the year, or at least, think about what the opportunities are once you get up there, and or the options in this case. So this lowers the break even. So really that's why I raised the strike, Oliver. So, the trade example today, buying 120 May call and then selling 145. So it's a 1 by 2. The break even on this is 165. So that would be new all-time highs if we get up there by May. I don't see that happening. However, I do see the possibility of us getting closer to those recent highs, which is around, that 140 level where there's resistance, maybe possibly above that. But this gives you a big range to the upside. It lowers your break even, defines your risk to the downside. And that's kind of the thought process that went into today's trade example.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Like the chart work, like the exposure, so you can take part in a good rally. But, you also trying to make it affordable for yourself. And,
that's the idea. Exactly.
And it kind of is a bet that when Nvidia makes a move, it's going to be a big move to the upside.
Well, and even if it's not, again, it's got 63 days till expiration. So, if we just hold these levels for the next week or two, and if the market can find some stability and start to maybe move higher as we move into April, even if Nvidia gets up to the 130, 135, then this thing really starts to take hold. Again, you don't really have any significant risk on this until we're above 165. That's very optimistic. Now, can it happen? Certainly it can happen. That would be a new all-time highs for Nvidia. I think the market is somewhat capped here in this level. Hopefully we'll find some stability. I don't know if we're going to get back to the highs in the first half of this year, but nonetheless, I do think that we'll find some higher price action over the next month or two.
Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang will give the keynote talk on Tuesday to kick off the company's week-long GPU Technology Conference in San Jose, California, which begins on Monday. Analysts and investors will probably be keeping an eye out for information on the company's most recent AI chips, impending launches, and advancements in robotics and gaming. The AI chipmaker is anticipated to present its Blackwell Ultra GB300 family of chips, which analysts at Deutsche Bank predicted would offer much better performance and more than 50% more memory capacity than its previous Blackwell offerings. The analysts stated that the timing of the GB300's launch will be a priority, especially as Nvidia has experienced setbacks in fully increasing Blackwell manufacturing. Nvidia may also provide additional information about its Rubin GPU, which is anticipated to replace Blackwell in 2026, as well as the Rubin Vera platform and related Vera CPU. Analysts speculated that Huang's keynote would provide hints about what lies a generation beyond Rubin. According to Bank of America analysts, GTC comes as Nvidia's stock has dropped 10% so far in 2025, providing a strong valuation going into the conference. The analysts maintained their $200 price target and buy recommendation, which is higher than the average of analysts that Visible Alpha tracks. With a consensus target of 177, Nvidia's intraday price of $120.87 on Friday would have increased by more than 45%. To stay informed about the latest developments from Nvidia and the ever-changing stock market, consider subscribing to our investing tutorial channel. We provide daily updates on significant market shifts and key catalysts, so hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss crucial information. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Nvidia stock, so please share your opinions in the comments below. Now let's dive into today's video.
If Jensen gives us some numerical update on how many chips and machines they've sold to support DeepSeek models, would be pretty interesting, but there's also kind of an ongoing investigation as to whether or not China got access to chips they weren't supposed to build DeepSeek. So I'm not sure what kind of that relationship is going to be like. So there's some uncertainty there. And to your point about how fast the tech is moving, I think that's pretty important too, because all this is still quite new. So if the experts in the Uber nerds tell us that the gigahertz per second, or I don't know, whatever it's going to be, is some astronomical figure beyond their wildest imaginations, then I'm sure that could be good for a couple % bounce.
It certainly could, and I would say keep in mind.
Get us back to 120.
Well, that's a big question, right? That would be a big jump, but I think you can certainly put some momentum to them. I think keep in mind, listen, we've seen Nvidia fall before. You look back in 2018, falling 55% as we saw those GPU inventories change, as we saw crypto mining demand kind of change later. Of course, they focused on gaming data. We saw that come back. Pandemic, we saw a huge recovery after a drop. Even more recently, you look back in July, an almost 20% drop on, hey, AI spending is going to slow down. Look at the recovery since then. So you don't want to count them out, certainly with this the technology they can release. Now, it's a big hill to climb because they have to continue to improve on this every single year. And the question is, which year are they going to really fall flat? Yeah. And I don't know that this will be the year, but that's what investors are really hoping they don't see.
I actually like the crypto reminder in this case, because that too, even though it might have been producing a bunch of useless coins, it was still a very new technology to run all these rigs and nodes and needing the Nvidia chips. And so to your point about the potential for surprise technological advancement on the AI front, that was a really fun time to trade Nvidia because it was really explosive in a lot of directions as people continued to be surprised by the demand and what was necessary at that time. So, all right, anything's possible. We're almost to 120. 140 is the other big line on my chart. Kind of seems like a long ways away, but it only took Nvidia a week to get from 140 to 120. Maybe next week you could do the opposite.
Young investors adore Nvidia, but many investors remain optimistic about the company's future in spite of the worry raised by DeepSeek and tariffs. Over the past 5 years, investors in Nvidia have had an incredible experience. Since 2020, the stock value of the computing hardware firm has increased by more than 1,800%, making Nvidia one of the most valuable corporations globally. This may be due to the curiosity of youthful investors. The business recently surpassed Tesla as the most popular stock on Robinhood, an investing platform that has 75% of its accounts funded by millennials and Gen Z. Vlad Tenev, CEO of Robinhood, tells Bloomberg that AI will make it more crucial than ever to invest in firms like Nvidia. According to him, if control over technology is going to be concentrated in a small number of technology businesses, then investing in such companies will be necessary to reap the benefits. For this reason, I believe AI will make investing more significant. Gen Zers are already paying attention. On the 18 million user subreddit or Wall Street Bets, Nvidia is one of the most talked about individual stocks on any given day. The NVDA stock community, which focuses solely on investing in the tech giant, has over 88,000 members. Experts argue that Nvidia's earnings reports are now as influential in influencing market movements as the U.S. jobs report, making it one of the most followed stocks in the world. The business generated $39.3 billion in the last quarter of 2024 alone, which exceeded forecasts in its most recent profit results. Barron says that several industry analysts are optimistic about Nvidia's future and have recommended it as a buy. However, the business has had a bit of a rough start to 2025. Nvidia's worth fell $500 billion after it was revealed that DeepSeek could rival American AI at a fraction of the price, and its stock price has been relatively stable ever since. In light of tariffs and growing concerns about a U.S. recession, this has caused some investors to wonder if the company's remarkable growth in 2023 and 2024 will be repeated in the years to come. Many Nvidia investors might be overly hasty to sell the stock, according to Jim Cramer of CNBC. In early March, Cramer wrote on X that the constant selling of Nvidia is a symptom of a weak shareholder base that only understands the firm is hot and not a great one, as well as concerns over a possible sellout by President Trump in Taiwan. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.